Let me begin with a simple question. Why do some companies experience relatively stable sales growth while others constantly fluctuate from month to month? Many MSME founders assume the answer lies in motivation. If the sales team is energetic, revenue grows. If the team loses motivation, revenue slows down. So when numbers dip, the instinctive response is to push harder. Motivational meetings are called, targets are raised, pressure increases. For a short period, activity rises. But after some time, the pattern repeats. Revenue becomes unpredictable again. This happens because motivation alone cannot create predictable outcomes. Predictability in business rarely comes from energy, it comes from design. Now, let me share an idea which I call the motivation trap. Motivation plays an important role in sales. Salespeople need confidence, they need resilience, they need the emotional strength to handle rejection. But motivation has a limitation. It is temporary. Human energy fluctuates. Some days people feel confident, other days they feel discouraged. If revenue stability depends only on motivation, the business will naturally experience volatility. This is why companies that rely heavily on motivational intensity often experience inconsistent revenue patterns. Their performance rises and falls with the emotional energy of the team. That is not a stable foundation for growth. Now the question is, what's the real source of predictability? Predictable revenue usually emerges when the sales process becomes structured. In other words, when the company begins designing how opportunities are generated, qualified, and progressed. Instead of depending entirely on individual effort, the organization creates a repeatable system. For example, strong sales systems often include the following: clear qualification criteria for opportunities, defined stages through which deals progress, consistent review rhythms for the sales pipeline, and disciplined follow-up structures. When these elements exist, sales activity becomes organized rather than random. This is when predictability begins to appear. Now, many asks a question to me: what design actually means in sales? When we say revenue is a design outcome, we mean that the sales organization is intentionally structured. The company defines how leads are generated. It defines how opportunities are qualified. It defines how deals move through different stages. It defines how sales conversations are reviewed. This creates a framework within which salespeople operate. Without such design, every salesperson follows their own approach. Each deal progresses differently, each opportunity is interpreted differently, and the entire pipeline becomes difficult to understand. But once design enters the system, the organization gains visibility. Leaders begin to see patterns. They understand where deals slow down. They understand where conversion improves. This visibility allows the organization to improve continuously. Now let us imagine two companies. In the first company, revenue fluctuates significantly. Some months are strong, other months are weak. When sales drop, the founder calls urgent meetings. The team increases activity. Deals are chased aggressively. Sometimes this produces short-term results. But the cycle continues. In the second company, the founder has gradually built a structured sales process. Leads enter the pipeline through defined channels. Opportunities are qualified before serious effort is invested. Deals move through clearly defined stages. Pipeline reviews happen regularly because the system provides visibility. The company can anticipate slow periods early and take corrective action. The second company may not always experience explosive growth, but it experiences something far more valuable, and that is revenue stability. And stability creates confidence. Now let me share the founder's perspective. For founders, predictable revenue changes the emotional experience of running a business. When sales is unpredictable, founders constantly feel pressure. They worry about upcoming months. They personally intervene in deals. They spend enormous energy trying to stabilize numbers. But when revenue becomes more predictable, leadership shifts. Instead of firefighting, founders begin planning. Instead of reacting to short-term fluctuation, they start designing long-term growth. The emotional environment inside the organization becomes calmer. This is one of the most underestimated benefits of structured sales systems. They do not only improve revenue, they improve the founder's psychological stability. Now, what's the role of sales process design? Sales process design does not mean rigid bureaucracy. It means creating clarity. Clarity about which opportunities deserve serious attention. Clarity about which conversations indicate real buying intent. Clarity about which signals show that a deal is progressing, and which situations require the team to step back. When sales teams understand these patterns, their work becomes more focused. Instead of chasing everything, they invest energy when it matters most, and that focus improves results. Now, here are the 3 signs that revenue is becoming designed. If your organization is moving toward predictable revenue, you will begin noticing a few important signs. First, the sales pipeline becomes easier to interpret. You can quickly see which deals are progressing and which are stuck. Second, sales reviews become more analytical and less emotional. Instead of blaming individuals, the organization begins examining the process. Third, forecasting improves. Because the company understands its pipeline stages better, revenue projections become more realistic. These signals indicate that the business is moving from reactive selling toward design sell systems. Revenue instability is exhausting for founders, but instability is rarely caused by lack of effort. More often, it is caused by lack of structure. Motivation can help teams push harder for short periods, but only design can create lasting predictability. When sales systems are thoughtfully designed, revenue begins to stabilize. And when revenue stabilizes, the entire organization begins to operate with greater confidence. Predictable revenue is not a motivational outcome, it is a design outcome. If this episode helped you rethink how revenue stability is created in sales organizations, consider sharing it with another MSME founder or sales leader who might benefit from this perspective. You can also follow the MSME Growth Hub podcast as we continue exploring how businesses can move from sales chaos to structured sales clarity. Till then, take care.